and I'm sitting here with Jackie Robinson, Spiritualist medium.
Hello.
And Warren Bailey, a Spiritualist Demonstrator. And today we're doing the third episode of Life and Life After Death. These are questions posed by the public. Now the first question that I have is, can you actually sense if a soul continues to change, to grow, and evolve on the other side? That's one. And does the journey continue on a different plane?
Okay. Do you like me?
Yeah,
well, it certainly does continue on a different plane. There are various planes. The first one is the one that, 99% of us probably go to, which is very similar to the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it tends to be the one where it's more like an extended holiday. Once you've had your time, visiting places and having the cottage you always wanted, that you start to want to learn more and develop.
Mm-hmm.
And when your soul's ready for that, then there is another higher plane of spirituality that people go to.
Right.
As in sensing someone's progress, it tends to be more that people come and sort of just say to you through mental mediumship that they've been, perhaps working on, learning from the Akashic records, or they are in perhaps the schools that are there in the spirit world, or they're helping out in the spirit hospitals for people that have, come over in sort of a crisis, in need of healing and helping their transition over. So you start to see people, develop. And so they are growing and they are learning, because obviously children grow up in the spirit world, so they're learning from that stage. And it may well be that other people, once they've had enough time in the spirit world, might come and be someone's guide or helper. So therefore they may then be evolving that whole time and learning. But the process is personal progression, for as long as you want it to be. So it's always there in front of you.
Right.
And so one might have some...
There's also that, the way my understanding of it has, and as much as there's also that connection with inside your soul groups, where there's this returning back to your spirit family or your soul family as well on this. So part of your progression also is, once you've actually go back there, you sort of also share back the knowledge of what you've experienced within this life, to then really in a way get designated again on where you go. And sometimes it is a case of, it's like, I've always had this different view on guides, where sometimes it's not about how much they've learned, but how much they didn't quite understand whilst they were here, and they get that chance to then come back and help someone else who may be going through that experience to then fulfill what they didn't quite accomplish. So when you return back to your soul groups, you get that re-clarity to go, okay, right, this is where I should have went wrong. And then you have that chance to come back and really help someone else, so they're not having to struggle and go through that on their own, really, in so many ways.
So what if you did something bad? So what if you were a criminal, or you murdered people, you were a serial killer, or something like that? What happens to these souls?
It really depends on the degree of the crime. Sometimes you've got a crime of passion. You've got someone that, that perhaps was drunk when they did it.
Yeah.
Normally, it's the forgiveness of the individual that lost their life because of you. Mm-hmm. So you see your own life, then you realise what you've done, and those individuals normally come forward and help the progression of that individual. Now that's different to somebody that was a mass murder.
Yes.
It's a few levels further down, and an awful lot of their victims having to be the ones probably that will have the compassion to perhaps visit those souls, because there is a quite a long progress of them being aware of what they did and how remorseful they are, and so that therefore it's the planes are very different indeed. There has to be dark so that you can tell the light.
Yes, that makes sense.
Doesn't wander without the
That
other.
makes sense.
There's also a lot of the times where you do go through those stages in this physical life where it's those around you, and sometimes those little added occurrences within inside your life will send you down a different path. And sometimes the the nicest people do the worst crimes, and sometimes some of the worst people do some of the greatest things. Your soul's always left in that balance where it can redeem itself. There's certain levels where people they go far beyond, okay, and there's got to be, as Jackie said, those planes. But it is anything to do with spirit, anything to do with life, the soul. It's all about forgiveness. And to me, part of your big journeys you make in life is, one, to forgive others for what have gone through, but also it's about to find true love in life. And I think that's not just as simple as meeting somebody. Sometimes it's about finding that love for everyone which is around yourself, and a lot of people in this world struggle with that final lesson, which is to send love back to everyone in this world. So.
But it's important to love yourself first.
It is.
Yes. Now, have you actually ever sensed the soul being present in their bodies and also on the other side simultaneously? That's an odd question, but I get, does it happen?
Right. Well, I would say the only way that I would say I recognise that, my mother passed her spirit only in the end of July.
Yes.
Now, before that, she had dementia for 3 years. And there were times, where I felt that she was a lost soul on this side of life, but that she was out of the body experiencing other things, because to me, otherwise, you're just trapped within the physical body. And so I do believe, therefore, that she was, it was just the fact that the silver cord hadn't been broken, and that, that she went on her own journeys and did things, and then just, came back to the body every now and then. Because she wasn't aware of her surroundings on Earth.
No.
She didn't know if there was somebody in the next chair, or what the day of the week was, or the month was, or when she did. So therefore, to me, her reality was no longer the same, and so therefore I do believe that she would be, was free to do things and experience, perhaps her soul journey while still in the physical body.
Yeah, so it's the same with like Alzheimer's disease and people that are in a coma.
Yes.
And sometimes when people have really gone through that prolonged illness as well, it's from my own experience as a mediumship, that has become very much apparent, where people are really, really struggling in this life. Sometimes the pain pushes them outside of their own body to then continue the two journeys all at once.
A question that I hear a lot, and when you're on a platform or giving private readings as well, did they suffer? Did they suffer from crossing over this end to the other end? Was it a smooth transition? You hear of people being thrown through a windscreen or dying in a plane crash or a car crash or anything like that. Do they feel that pain, or is their soul lifted from their physical body?
Pain is a physical emotion,
Yes.
whether it's with the mind or whether it's with the body. As from what I've experienced as well, whether it's through the forces of where I've seen people go, it always feels more like a release, where the body's removed from that pain, which has sometimes felt them trapped, whether for a split second or whether it's been for a long progressed illness, to the point of, do they suffer in any way? Never. It's just this leaving, but this light which is just filled with love, from what I've seen and experienced of it. And it is just one of those greatest releases. And I do feel that when people talk about the soul returns home, that's with what peace it's received on the other side. So.
I do believe that the soul makes its mind up that it can no longer be able to maintain the body. The body is not fit for purpose. That, whether or not it's because of an awful disaster, or they've literally, if they've been blown up or something violent, then they've gone over in a split second. If it's something like a terminal illness, then there is a point where, the soul decides it can no longer manage the pain that, it is at that point suffering. Normally, when somebody has that point of suffering, the morphine is normally administered by the nursing staff and doctors.
Yes.
Therefore, you have the out-of-body experience anyway. So it's that release, and it's a question of the body just slowing down for its own natural end.
Yeah.
You know, it may have been brought on by an awful disease, but the fact is the individual, you know, will only go when the individual is ready.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen several people that are terminally ill, and some, you know, we get a call to go up there for, you know, seeing them for their last few moments, and that they've lasted several more days.
Yeah.
Because the soul has not been ready. They may not have been conscious, therefore they may have been in the spirit. And perhaps it's just the fact they've been having a look round and seeing things and friends and sort of saying they're not quite ready to dip both feet in the water and release that final part, you know, to go into, you know, the next part of their life.
Now, those that have crossed over, I know that they still have the ability to interact with us. But what are some of the amazing ways that you know that they've made their presence known?
Mm-hmm. Well, I quite enjoy regularly using the Ouija board, and my father-in-law is very, very good at using it, and it comes back with his personality, because he used to swear, and he swears on the Ouija board. And it's, you know, exactly what he would say and how he would say it. So therefore, that's definitely a physical, you know, him showing that he's still around.
Yeah.
And, you know, other things, sounds in the home, certain noises.
Yeah.
You know, my mother-in-law only passed away last week.
Yes.
And since then, you know, we've had incidences of my grandson's toys working by themselves that normally have to be switched
Really?
on. And other sounds within the house or lights dimming. You know, that's a favourite one of people that have just passed over is dimming lights. You know, moving pictures or, you know, other small objects on the side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember when my nan passed, that my mum used to say that she had some scissors hanging up on a hook and they used to swing. So I've always been very aware of a physical phenomena of people. And of course, going to homes that have a presence in there, that people don't want that presence to be in the home, you know, you can feel the energy sometimes.
Yeah.
So very much, I've seen a great deal of physical.
Well, you got to think we're all energy, whether it's spirit, whether it's ourselves, whether it's the home and the things within inside your home. And if spirit are really wanting to get your attention, really make you aware of what's going on, that especially when anything to do with electric, because it's still that energy, they can use sometimes some of the power coming in from that to actually enhance their own. So instead of where you'd have the odd, like, oh, did I hear something? It can then create it louder, and that's why you usually get the flickerings of the lights, and that's
TV's turning on.
And that's where you get, because it's not like a possession as such, okay, because it's still spirit just saying, okay, I'm here, but they're using some of the energy from the electric to draw that power in to make it slightly stronger, and that's when you start getting the lights flickering and then like hearing footsteps. There's where I'm staying at the moment whilst I'm down here, it's like a tree house type effect, and you can hear the footsteps going across the timber, but it's on an old medieval site, and you can just hear and sense so much energy around yourself, and you know you're at no harm, but their presence from the built up of the energy and the excitement of what goes on around there just makes everything so much more stronger. So when spirit want to get hold of you, they will make themselves known.
And sometimes it can just be cold spots. I have experienced walking into a part of a room which has been as though you walk into a freezer.
Really? And it's just a certain spot, and then you step out of it and it's warm again. It's normal.
There's no drafts, no windows, doors open.
The power of spirit is endless. It's usually only gets as far as people's imagination, as much as far as they'll allow themselves to really incorporate from it. But the power and the intelligence of spirit is just phenomenal. Change hot to cold to anything to really gain your attention. So it's amazing.
And how would you say, how would we interact more with them? You know, how would we welcome that interaction, and how would we raise our vibration? Because they're on a different vibration, so we have to meet somewhere in the middle.
That's going into a training circle. That's learning how to meditate, learning to feel the different senses, learning to be quiet enough from the material world, so that you are, changing your vibration. And it's, a practice with learning, with development, so that you're there, or it's doing something, physical, like that's sitting in a group where they're doing some physical circle work, like a Ouija board, where you can see physically a glass moving.
You have to always be at one with yourself half the time to really become at one with spirit. And as discussed today by a few people as well, the first point of your journey is usually to heal and understand yourself. Makes it so much easier for you to then become at one with yourself, to then really raise your vibration up, to then become at one with spirit as well. So there is this development which is needed. And we sat with the glass the other day, and you just can feel and sense the full presence of spirit when they become around. So it makes it so much easier to really deal with life in so many ways when you have an understanding of what life's really about, rather than just walking from A to B all the time, like a lot of people muddle through. So it's definitely worth everyone's development to really try and find an understanding of not just spirit but spirituality as a whole.
I would like to define it that we're on one radio station and the spirit world, heaven, is on another.
Yes.
And there you are with the tuner and your attunement, and you're learning to attune.
Yes.
To get to get onto that other frequency.
And what about let me rephrase that. What about astrology? Do you believe in that?
I do believe that there is a certain element of perhaps people coming down under a certain chart at a certain time for certain aspects of personality, but to the point of the vague, paragraph in the paper, you've got the astrology and you've got the astronomy, so it's the fact is, the star signs. So therefore, I do believe there is certain traits that perhaps will help you do a certain task, perhaps on the earth, and you plan what time you're going to arrive into the world for certain reasons.
What do you think?
Astrology and numerology, they're all coming more linking around all your star charts and everything like that. But you go back years upon years, that was the way people really found their guidance. Okay, and
that's true.
But to now, there's other ways. Okay, there are other ways, but I do think that some of the information is accurate, but I believe that the people who truly represent that are ones which have studied it and really accepted it as part of themselves. I'm not an astrologer or a numerologist, so other than the fact of, yes, I do feel it does work, but I feel you need, if it's something people are interested in, I feel that they should speak to someone who's has went not just down the physical but the scientific, and really understands the history of where astrology and numerology all stem from, rather than if you came to me, I'll go, okay, right, there's a few stars there. It'll be a bright night tonight. I wouldn't have the understanding there to really do it justice.
No. I've been to an Adi astrologer in India, and they ask you certain questions, and the guy was in Bangalore and he couldn't find me. And so he said, I will give you a call. He's like, because I really have to search for it. A couple of days later, I got a call. He's like, I'm really sorry, but I cannot find your Nadi leaf. So, yeah, that's a different kind of astrology. I still think that you make your own life.
I certainly think there's certain traits in certain star signs.
Sure.
I'm Scorpio, and that is a sort of a very strong sign. And I've known a lot of other Scorpios that are in positions of authority or leadership. So therefore, I do think sometimes there is a certain trait of that particular star sign.
Right.
So I think it's almost like a mix in a pot. When you're coming down to earth, and it says, well, what do you want to try and do and achieve? Well, let's give you a little bit of this, and you're going to need compassion because you want to go into nursing or doctor. So let's give you a little bit of that one, and so therefore, the various different blends. I do believe there is an element of that from the amount of different people, the star signs that they are in the type of professions they are. It would be lovely to do a survey, wouldn't it, for the type of professions people were in to do with their star sign, and of course, depending there if they're on a cusp of a star sign as well. And for instance, Ashley is a Libra, and that's a very balanced sign, and he's very diplomatic. So therefore, I do think that the Libra influence there within his personality helps him, and the fact that he is a very balanced individual. You know, so therefore I do think that there is quite a bit into it. To say it's a science, a complete science. It's not, and a sentence, in fact, doesn't really, you know, do it justice.
So I love this question. God, who's God? What is God?
Well, to me, God is the essence of the force that exists throughout the universe and in the spirit world. To me, it is a uniting of all the energy that is actually evolved to a very high level. So that to me is like the power of one force having many millions of souls at that high energy and that force, you know, to be an element of God. It's which runs through all of us. I don't believe that God is an old man sitting on a throne, one individual to look after, you know, the trillions of individuals that have passed through since eternity. But I do believe that there's the God's essence, and, you know, that's what powers the universe, what we're all part of. And we'll go back to being part of that group.
What do you think, Warren?
I try not to delve too much in it. I fully agree with what Jackie's just said there, because it understands with my own belief. I never tried to force religion. I never tried to force the aspect of God. I'm all about faith, and to me, I believe in God. Okay, I don't force it on people. I don't even tell people that I believe in God, because to me, I'm about making sure people have faith, the understanding of the reason why we have it, and to make people see and understand that they're not alone in this life. To me, I'm not about the showing of God. I understand the presence. I understand the way the world works. And to me, it feels like we're on a path. Who set that path? I leave to other people's decisions, okay? But my life since I found spiritualism is at peace. And if I have to thank God for that, I will do. But when I work forward and pay everything forward which I've received, I hope I can sort of not give people religion, but give them faith in themselves and what is around us. And if that's spreading the word of God, then I'm happy to do that.
There's something I was sitting the other day, because I had that question in my head, and I had somebody told me he's Great White Spirit, but he said it like this: I'm Great White Spirit, and once I was running across the plains of Earth, and now I'm Great White Spirit running across the plains of heaven. And he said, I am you, you are me, and we are all one. So we're all connected to that consciousness. And he said, you know, and God is energy. It's universal energy, it's source. And he said, what people don't realize is that the power of energy, I mean, you know, the more people think positive thoughts, so to speak, or direct their thoughts, the more it will go there. So it's the same with healing. If you direct that energy properly, as he was saying, you know, you have no idea how powerful that can be.
For good and for bad, which is
good and for
important
bad,
for people to watch
So
what they think. But I do believe there is a collective great architect of the universe that has the bigger plan, and, you know, is to such great purity and you know, also known as the Great Brotherhood as well. So that there are a few sayings, but they are all this, to me, this collective of this pure evolved energy that keeps us all going.
But that means that if there are disasters about to happen, then if we know it, we can, if thousands and thousands think the same, you know, to avert it, then with that energy, we can.
Yes, it's people understanding how powerful they are.
Yes.
And if you could do this, we would say, well, actually, there's a tsunami coming. Now we all need to, you know, push the ocean back, you know,
That's
and that
right.
power. But it's the fact that Mother Earth is being a little bit ravaged by, you know, certain elements we cannot control. And, you know, when we have these disasters, it isn't God's fault. No, you can't blame God, because you're not an individual. And sometimes it's obviously the bigger plan, which we're not party to, because we've not evolved sufficiently to understand. But the fact, because we're eternal, it means, well, okay, we'll come back down and have another life. It's not such a big deal, you know. It's just part of our, you know, complete eternal cycle.
Yeah. Final question. Right. A lot of people are held back in, in living their life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what holds them back, and how would you advise them to live?
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes people are fearful of making change. So therefore, there's been an expression, the devil because the fact is you think, well, you're secure, so therefore you don't wish to be insecure. And, if you've got a family to support, then you end up, falling into a job that you absolutely hate. And some people go for a pattern of living that life forever. But what you have to do is be bold enough to make the steps.
Yes.
And spirit will help you, but you have to make that progression yourself. Now, I've always used positive energy to bring about change and to ask spirit and say, I need to get promoted, I need to change job, help me. And then what you do, you don't just sit back and then wait for the angels to do all of it. What you do is get them to help you. And I always, when I needed change, was to have affirmations around me. And in fact, I even used to have it my security password at work. And I would, and I had to change it every month. So I would say go in and then gone. And, I would make it that it was something that I could see every morning. But I actually said, I need to make this happen. And sometimes if you have bad energy around you with not working, you like the job, but the individuals around you are a challenge, then what you don't want is negative thoughts towards them. So I always used to have positive thoughts. Please let this person get promoted and have to move office to somewhere else, but it'd be a wonderful experience for them, and that used to work as well. So sometimes if you are too fearful to change, then perhaps you can send, your angels to have a word with their angels about moving them out of your environment and protecting yourself, in a suit of mirrored armour. So any negative thoughts that go towards you are bounced back, but you haven't sent any negative thoughts. People are just getting them back threefold from what they sent.
Yeah.
You do have to think there is that fear, but there's also the lessons we have to go through. We can go, okay, right, why am I going through this? We can blame the rest of the world, and half the time we would look for excuses of why things seem to be against us. But we actually have to take responsibility for that. We have to find the understanding of this so we can learn from the lessons. Sometimes it will take us years. Sometimes it will. I've suffered depression in the past, and it took me a while to find the light out of the darkness. Okay, because you fall so far, and you're thinking, whose fault is this? And then it dawns on you one morning when you're looking in the mirror and you're going, okay, right, I could have saved myself so much pain, so much heartache. And just looked and seen what was wrong and took that responsibility for where I'd went off track. Because it is a case of the lessons, and half the time we're too scared to face up to our problems, too scared to admit we're vulnerable, that we don't see
the opportunities that have been put in front of us.
And I had a few bad financial times, and like Jackie said about this affirmations, I had a diary, and I think I've got nothing in it. I don't really. I weren't sure when my next work was coming from. I weren't sure where the bills were getting paid from. Because we've all had a life. Yes. Anyone who thinks their life's been smooth sailing, I don't know what life they've had. Okay, but I wrote this affirmation on the date which I was going. Okay, so I opened the diary at that date, and I wrote the affirmation down, and work started coming in, and everything, and it was the fact I went, please.
You have to be specific to them about what you need, and look for a date and say, well, actually, I need some help this week, and it will happen, and it will be that part. But I think of life as snakes and ladders board, and sometimes we're supposed to go back down or go back up. But if we came down and we had a life which was perfect, we were born into a rich family, we never had to worry ever about where our food was coming from. We could do what we like. When we come back to spirit world, what have we actually learned? What have we achieved? What experiences have we done? How much have we grown? Or is it the fact that, well, actually, that was a nice rest, but I didn't really do anything with my life. I better come back down and actually do some hard graft, because you can think of your material bank account, but you have to think of your spiritual bank account. Very important. Because it's a spiritual bank account. You take back the spirit with you.
Yes.
the lessons in life are important, whether they're the hardships, whether they're the understandings. It's all about those lessons, because we need them for our soul to progress, which answers one of your first questions. For our soul to really progress, we have to find that understanding in life, whether it is the difficulties.
Yeah.
If it's a case of someone struggling with moving forward, start trying to find that positivity within inside your own life. Start looking at what you may need to be changing. Find out where your insecurities are, where your fears are. Start to face them one day at a time. And I think that's the same with anything, is one day at a time. You don't expect the world to change overnight, because you can't change yourself overnight. But to take that one step at a time, write that positive affirmation down. Tell yourself 3 things what you love about yourself. Look in the mirror and tell yourself you're proud of yourself.
Love
All
yourself.
And what you enjoy doing,
Yeah.
what sort of work you would like to do. Often I know what sort of work I don't want to do from the experience of it. So you say, I like work, but I don't want to be in this direction, and then volunteer in it, you know, grow in that area that you want it to be. And it works. And with the affirmations, you know, I got promoted 6 times in 12 years.
It works, doesn't it?
It does, because I left school at 16 without any formal qualification. I just wanted to, because I was already engaged to Ray at 16, I just wanted to earn money. You know, and I married on my 18th birthday, so we had the family early. But then I've plotted the strategy, and I've even said to my managers, I want to get promoted this year, and I've gone out and got promoted. You know, one time I think I went for about 4 promotion boards all at the same time in different areas.
It's good.
Positive affirmations will change your life, and it allows you to stay positive. If you're positive, it's catching. You're positive, the people around you become more positive.
I'm positive,
and you
I'm always negative.
But you start changing one person's life at a time. Start with your own, and then it gradually goes outwards.
I think I've talked about this before. There was a French chemist called Émile Coué, the father of affirmations. And by chance, he was working in a pharmacy, and this guy kept returning because he was ill, and he kept giving him all this medication, and it placebo effect. And the guy said, I don't know what you gave me, you know, a couple of days later, but I feel great.
We have to think, because some people say, oh, I live a spiritual life, why should it happen to me? And you have to turn it around and say, why shouldn't it happen to you? You know, there are many people worse off.
Yes.
You know, that go through worse experiences. So we have to be very thankful for every day, you know, that we're alive, and we don't. You know, 100 years ago, you know, people worried if they would get through, you know, a winter if they had enough food to survive. And none of us have to really worry, not in this country, not in the whole of the Western Hemisphere. You know, we have heat, we have light, we have food.
Yeah.
You know, so therefore sometimes I think we end up, you know, not doing enough and volunteering enough and being busy enough. That's when we start to actually think, oh, well, I'm not getting anywhere or doing anything, you know. But, you know, always enjoy answering your questions.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to join you today.
Okay.